Hello, hello. Welcome back to Trading Triangle once again on Sunday, the 23rd of February. Just me and Kaye today. How you doing, Kaye?
I'm doing great, Sean. How's everybody doing? Happy Sunday to all.
Yeah, it's a lovely day here. Well, it was a lovely day here in the UK, but it's just started thunder and raining. So yeah, that's what you get in the UK, I guess.
Well, it's cold here.
Yeah,
That's also.
it's been cold here recently as well. And in degrees, it's been about 2-ish, that kind of thing. I don't know what that's in Fahrenheit, but
I would say in centigrade we would be closer to maybe 5 degrees today.
Well, okay. Should we jump into the stocks then, shall we?
Let's do that. Yeah, we can skip the weather.
We're not here for the weather. Obviously, we're just a couple of guys on the internet, so don't take our word for advice. It's not financial advice, of course. We just love to look at charts and give perspectives, etc., etc. Once again, obviously, thank you to Wolfen. That's user platform. We really, really appreciate it. And subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're going to be releasing a few more videos coming up there in the next few months related to kind of trading psychology and kind of risk management throughout the market. So we're looking forward to getting stuck into that at some point. And obviously the audience requests, I will stick the little banner up if I can find it. Where are we? Yeah, so there you go, little banners coming up now. Put your ticker requests in the comments. We've got a few to go through already from pre-live stream notes. I don't know how to explain that, but obviously do go ahead and do that. And one last thing, we are off next week. Kaye is going to Europe. He's coming over to my neck of the woods. He's not seeing me, but he's coming over to my neck of the woods. Are you excited for that, Kaye?
I'm super excited to head to Europe again. But looking forward to it, right?
Exactly. Right, let's jump into this slideshow. Right, it's last week. I mean, it felt a bit red. I think it was mostly because of Friday. I mean, what a day it was. I mean, you can see on the screen here, I'm being blasted by red. And we've got Google down 3%, Meta down 6%, Amazon down 5.5%, Tesla just above your head there. You've got 6.3%.
Yeah.
And NVIDIA and Apple not doing too badly. Any thoughts on this one?
Well, we'll keep the NVIDIA for later, but I'm super disappointed that Apple was not in red. I do not understand why Apple was in green. Like the product announcement was a joke, in my personal opinion.
Well, it did pull back a little bit on Friday, didn't they? There is a little bit of a technical level, and we do actually have Apple coming up a bit later on.
Yeah.
So stay tuned for the audience request. We can go through Apple and see what our thoughts are on the chart, because there is a very obvious resistance point that I can see. But you can see actually in health technology and consumer non-durables, actually not too bad. It's pretty green up there in the top right-hand corner. So perhaps that's the play going into next week, but we'll see. Fear and greed index, we're still sitting in the fear. We were fear last week at about 44, as we can see. And we were in the fear 1 month ago as well, 41. Anything to run through here, Kaye?
So interestingly, that the put to call ratio last week was 0.65, and at the end of Friday it was 0.64. So it became bullish on the put to call, but we went from 44 to 35 on the fear and greed. So that's a little bit, the data is very confusing here. Number two, we were in the 15 on the wicks, and now we are up to 18. So I'll just give you a very early trading idea, right? This is because generally we don't cover wicks. If you like to trade often, you can probably, at least for this year, what I'm noticing is that you can probably buy calls at the money 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 2 to 3 weeks for wicks when it's like around the 14, 15. Maybe buy it on a Monday, let it run for 2 weeks, and we'll see these spikes often. And then that's one of the trading ideas that I have for wicks. But yeah, I mean, overall, we have some key events coming up. We have consumer confidence numbers coming out on 225, and the jobless numbers are going to come out on 227. So that's definitely going to have an impact on the markets.
Absolutely. Justin says, happy Sunday, Justin. We've got will Microsoft support holds by Dat Tran.
We are covering Microsoft.
But we have it on the list, so if you stay tuned about 15-20 minutes, and it will be coming up for you, so stay tuned for that. And then PK just coming in there with hi or hello, PK, how are you doing? Right, let's move on to the next part, shall we? And this is the earnings. Earnings still in full flow. We've got plenty of names on the screen there. I'm going to be streaming a lot of earnings this week, especially, so we've got HIMS. Maybe I'll move my mouse here. Got HIMS here, I'll be streaming. Lucid, I'm interested in seeing how they're performing at the moment. Obviously, NVIDIA and SOFI, big names on Wednesday. And then obviously SoundHound, I think, is another big name. At least at the moment, it's kind of in the news a lot. I'm not sure if it's that big, but SoundHound's definitely in the news. Anything you're watching this week?
Pretty much. You pretty much covered everything. The only thing that you missed, which you don't care, is Zoom.
Yeah.
And I think from the AI standpoint, I know that C3 AI was a pretty big name for AI plays. You would want to watch Dell also if you are into that AI play. It's I don't have any trading into it, but I generally track Dell, and I like Duolingo, the one at the bottom on Thursday. Yeah, that's on my watch list now. I've been trying to see a good opportunity to get in.
Do you use Duolingo at all?
Oh, I have a streak of 987 days,
Wow,
so that's about that.
that's just over 3 years, or just under 3 years, maybe.
Yeah.
That's actually really impressive, Kaye. I mean, that's really really good. We've got Rocket Lab is here actually as well on Thursday. After you can't really see it on there, but Rocket Lab is a very highly followed stock. Other good ones as well. You've got First Solar. Interesting to see how the solar industry is getting on, and Ion NQ, which is the quantum play, which a lot of people like to have a look at as well. So the few names on there. Oh, and actually Fubo. Fubo's a lot of kind of interest around that. So we're getting to kind of the smaller cap names with a little bit more of a hypey kind of interest around these names. So it'll be interesting to see how they get on. But yeah, definitely a very volatile week ahead, especially with that price action on Friday. Anything could happen. So let's jump into the first chart of the day, and that's SPY. I'm going to hand it straight over to you. Actually, I want to get you to give your thoughts on this chart, because I've obviously got my thoughts on the chart, and you can kind of see them already. But yeah, you got any thoughts on SPY?
All right, so I think a couple things right off the bat. We are trading at all-time highs, and we had a small pullback right on SPY, and I see that there's a lot of scare in the market, and especially in investors. What's going to happen. I mean, let's be honest. We had some pretty bad numbers, right? You had inflation is going up, egg prices are still high. The new president says, "Hey, I'm only here for 3 weeks," and but whatever be the case, that's the truth, right? The prices are going up. Unemployment, right? With all the firings that are happening, that is going to have an impact on the market. Whether you like it, whether it's good, whether it's bad, we don't know. But when you have unemployment going up, it's going to impact the market. Fed is not, going to cut the interest rates. That's another problem, right? They are being adamant on not cutting interest rates. So if Fed is not going to cut interest rates, unemployment is going to go up, prices are going up, geopolitical tensions are still ramping up. We could see a pullback from those levels. Now, this is not a technical point of view. This is more fundamental and macro level point of view. But as of right now, I think it's we could still see some kind of a pullback. But again, you are at all-time highs. You can't keep just running up every single week. You will have red days.
Yeah, and the market's forward-looking as well. So all of those things you just said about unemployment, rate hikes, and obviously the geopolitical situation, people might be thinking, oh, what's this going to be looking at like in 6 to 9 months? And perhaps we have a little bit of a pullback, and perhaps that's actually healthy, which is why I've got that line drawn on the screen there at 585, because it is a gap fill. I'm not saying it's going to get down anytime soon. We could bounce tomorrow. So I do actually already like this line here at 598. We've got a 50-moving average, and we've got lots of volume at this level as well. But if we do break that, then that'll be the next one I look at, that 585 level. But yeah, I brought up this comment on the side here by Abel. So you expect SPY and QQ to continue to drop? Yes and no. There's definitely gunpowder there for it to continue to drop. Sorry, but we'll see what happens going forward. But I thought I'd bring the comment up there just to kind of show people what we're actually talking about. But should we move on to the QQQ?
Yeah, we can definitely.
Yeah, this one looks a bit more interesting because we've got a couple of previous trend lines here. Let me just give the comment quickly. So we've got a couple of trend lines. It looks like it's appearing to break the one that's kind of ascending and the one that's descending. So it's kind of a bit of a limbo at the moment in terms of actually kind of grabbing hold of the trend lines. It hasn't lost any of them, of course, because you need 2 candles to do that. So if we do get another candle to the downside, obviously I'm looking at this 522 level to hold. But that to me is a break of this trend line. So it's kind of a very contrarian kind of technical analysis, because one thing looks good, but another thing looks bad. But if we do get a subsequent drop below 522, then of course that does look really bad, like extra bad. This is the 1-day chart, by the way, Abel. Sorry about that. Should have said that at the beginning. But maybe down to kind of 513, 514. That would be a good kind of support to maybe get a hold of. But yeah, you're right. With all these kind of concerns, perhaps maybe we are getting a bit of an overturn. But then with all of this kind of uncertainty, that could be the opposite reaction. It could go straight back up to all-time highs in the next couple of weeks because people are expecting the downside, but the market just says, no, scratch that, we're going higher.
And just to add on this one, right? So for SPY and QQQ in particular, whether you're trading or not, you should have position in index funds. So every time you see a pullback, that's an opportunity to add to your index fund long-term portfolio. So don't miss on these chances. When it falls, it's red if you're trading, yes, sure, but then it also gives an opportunity to add to your long-term portfolio. And I think everybody should have a SPY and QQQ in their portfolio for long-term.
Yeah, well said. We have got a comment up here, actually. Can you please list some names in the SaaS industry? Maybe we can do that at the end of our individual picks.
Yep.
We'll bring it back up and we'll talk about some SaaS names. Obviously, that's definitely your ballpark.
Yep.
So we'll jump into that money managed. No worries about that. So we'll jump on to the next chart, which is my first chart and my pick of the week, which is RIVN. Now, you can see in the bottom left-hand corner there, you've got RIVN highlights from the earnings call that happened recently. I'm not going to read through them all. You can read them on the left side there. But it wasn't too bad. The company's definitely moving in the right direction. But the only kind of bad thing, I guess, we should say, was the guidance for 2025. They're looking at kind of guiding for deliveries for the same amount, basically, as 2024. But they are shutting down the factories again, obviously implementing the R2 structure, and obviously managing the cost efficiency going forward. So there is definitely reasons for that. But generally, going on to the technical side of things, we do have another retest of this trend line. Now, I'm not saying it's going to boom higher anytime soon, especially with the market the way it is, but I do like it here to add for the long-term position. Obviously, it's not financial advice, but for my long-term kind of hold, my long-term position, and maybe even like a longer-term swing trade, this is a point of interest for me personally. What are your thoughts on this one, Kaye?
So first of all, I think RIVN's strategy of launching the R2 is very important, because if you look at their R1, R1S, and R1T, those are very expensive vehicles. They are bigger vehicles. So to compete with a mass market SUV, which is the mid-size SUV, so Model Y could be one, Toyota RAV4 could be one, right? For that, R2 is very, very essential. So I personally think that, RIVN is doing a pretty good job in slowly going to launch R2, and that could become a very good alternative for Model Y. Because you do need competition in the market. If you really think about it, there is really no other car that can compete with Model Y. So R2 could be a potential competitor in the mass market space because the pricing will be very similar. I think they are going to launch around the 46,000 mark, and a typical Model Y would be around that as well. So then you will have two cars, similar tech-oriented cars, not your typical ICE cars getting converted into those companies like Ford and GMs. They are not true electric vehicle cars. So I think that's a good sign from a long-term perspective of RIVN. Of course, they are nowhere near Tesla when it comes to the scale. They are only operating in the US. RIVN is looking to, I guess, open. They're moving to Europe. I'm not sure which part of Europe, but I think that's going to bring a little bit of variety into the existing market. We need that competition.
Yeah, of course. And it's a different type of vehicle as well, and lots of pickups and stuff. And obviously, Americans do like their pickup trucks, of course, so they kind of appeal to that type in the market. And just going back to kind of customer satisfaction as well. I mean, there's a huge amount of customer satisfaction around RIVN, and I think that's going to do really well for them for the years going forward. Because if you buy one RIVN, you might as well buy another RIVN if you really like it and you have the money, of course. But yeah, or even upgrade to another RIVN, that kind of thing.
I'm actually looking to. I did put my reservation for RIVN R2.
Oh yeah, did you?
I did.
Awesome.
2026.
Nice. Yeah, next year. It's actually not that far away. So 12 months we'll be talking about that.
Yeah.
There's going to be deliveries in the first half of 2026. So yeah, life moves fast. So we'll see what happens with that. Awesome. So that's my pick of the week. We'll see how that does going forward. Obviously, we might bring it up in the future weeks as well. You can find me on X, where I do daily trading insights, kind of trading psychology. I post my trades there as well sometimes. Just kind of general kind of noise around that. On YouTube, I'm doing a lot of live trading at the moment. I'm going to have quite a few kind of trading videos coming out as well, like evergreen videos, ones that you can go back to and add to your playlist, etc. So that I'm going to enjoy doing that. And obviously TTR, which is my trading community, which you can find the links for on my X profile. There's both free and paid versions, but I'll let you dive into that and have a look at that. Got a few new members recently, which is really exciting. So yeah, do take a look at that. And with that, we'll hand over to Kaye and your chart today, which I think is SMCI.
Yeah, SMCI is my pick of the week. And the reason is because this is a very crucial week for SMCI. They have the deadline coming up on February 25th. I believe it's a Tuesday, if I'm not wrong. And they have to file their 2024 annual report. They have to file all the quarterly reports, which, the whole debacle happened last year where I think Ernst & Young quit as their accounting firm. The good news is that on the last earnings call, which happened last week, they did confirm to the analysts that they would be, they are on track to file. So there shouldn't be any problem. Now, I think that SMCI is a sleeper pick for 2025. Is the reason is because just looking at the business itself, this is a pretty solid business. So barring the accounting debacle that happened, the stock was trading at almost $100 plus, and the stock took a downturn on this whole news, going down to what, $17-18. So the reason I said it's a sleeper pick is, what we could see is on February 25th, if they file, we could see buy the rumor, sell the news, right? Because the stock has already run up in anticipation that they are on track to file for February 25th, and there would be no problem. So we could see a pullback, which we saw on Friday, a little bit of pullback. We do have a resistance at 63.79. So that's a good level to watch. And we could see a pullback going all the way, pulling back to the 48.54, which is the second line. So I think any place, if it pulls back, I would personally be adding into SMCI more, because I do see that a potential for the stock in general. As long as they get through this 25th filing and everything is fine, they are not delisted, I think the stock would be touching back to the 100 level, pretty soon. Because once this stock starts running, it does run up pretty fast. There are a couple levels. I'm not saying it's going to happen right away. Assuming 25th listing goes well, the levels you will want to watch is 63.79, 72.87, and then of course the 97. But there's a lot of upside potential. We do have a floor at 30.49. That's where I built most of my position out for the run up. But as you can see, the stock ran up all the way from the mid 30s to almost $55-60 in a span of 4 or 5 trading days. So that's the pick of the week, especially with the February 25th date coming up.
I mean, what a pick that is if it goes to 97. Obviously, I'm not expecting that in 1 week, but eventually, yeah, that's a really good pick.
So because I have bought multiple tranches, one of my tranche, and I'll share that with you, it was the cost basis around $35. I sold a covered call for $95, expiring in August, which means that I have already built that value within it. So if the stock runs up to 95 come August, I'm more than happy to sell that position out with a $5 premium. So which means that I'm basically selling a $35 into a $100. And I'm okay, having that run up. But I have also built multiple other tranches so that, I can take profit at different levels.
Yeah, no, I think that's smart. I think just from a technical level as well, you mentioned this 48.54, and you can see lots of resistance here as well, basically in later parts of last year. And of course, that touched in right at the end of last year as well in December. So if it does come back down to this level, it would be almost a breakout retest, which obviously I like the look of. So I've just written that down on my list. I think I've had it on my list before because I think you brought this one up recently as well.
A couple of weeks ago, yeah.
It's interesting to see how it's moved, and maybe it's just coming back down for that natural retest of 48.54, which again is perfectly healthy. But yeah, I mean, like you said, this is a very high, fast-moving stock, very volatile. So just be careful when you are trading these types of assets because you can get burnt pretty quickly.
Exactly.
My tip for that is to kind of obviously size down a bit lower. At least for me personally, but I do like the double. It's pretty much a double if you go from 48 to 97.
Exactly. And I think if you have not opened a position in SMCI, you're not in there, I would wait for the 25th filing to happen.
Yeah,
because it's too close for you to make a run, right?
Yeah, and we do have the RSI as well, just above your head there, or in between our heads. It's still pretty high, so maybe that natural kind of fall down to 60, 70 would be a little bit better to go for further highs, perhaps.
Exactly.
Yeah. Awesome. Where can we find you, Kaye?
Well, you can find me on X, and if you were following me on X, you probably would have caught SMCI in the 30s when I was posting about it. But if not, no problem. Make sure you follow me on X. YouTube, definitely. I pretty much I get a video out every single week. The next video coming out will be Google, so that is another sleeper pick for the year 2025. Definitely follow there. And Substack is, if you like a written format, that's where I write on Substack.
Good stuff. Looking forward to that Google video for sure. Right, let's dive into some audience requests then. Oh, actually, no, before we do that, what we'll do is while I'm fiddling around with the
The
screen,
SaaS names,
we
right?
can talk about the SaaS names for money managed here.
Yeah.
While fiddling around the screen.
So I think some of the folks requested some names that are part of SaaS. So one that really comes to mind is Snowflake. That's one of the big SaaS names. You have Datadog, another big name in the space. Those are the ones. If you like the project management operating software, I would say Monday and Asana. Those are other SaaS names in the space. Um, what else that I generally trade? Let me pull up my list. I have it here. Give me 1 second.
Do you have the ability to comment in the comments?
I do. I
Can
do.
you just write some down in there for money
I
managed? You might
Okay.
best write them down a bit easier for him at least.
All right.
Or
I
her.
will. Let's go ahead with the other list. I'm going to write it down for a couple of the SaaS space.
Yeah. Awesome. We'll get up the charts while you do that. Obviously, keep coming in with the audience requests. We do have quite a few already. I'm not too sure if we'll get through them all. I think we probably will at the moment. So you can always keep putting in a few more. Always happy to go through all of them. How many do we have, do you reckon, Kaye?
So right now we have almost 14 requests.
Okay, yeah, nice, cool. That's pretty cool. So keep them coming. We'll see how far we get with the request, but we do get through them. What's the name of the guest? Sorry, I'm assuming. I mean, that might be you. I guess I don't know if that.
I guess yeah. It's Kaye.
Invest K.
Yeah.
So you can kind of see at the bottom there on the screen there, Frank. So you've got at Invest K. He should come up pretty easily for you. No worries, money manage. We like to do the best we can. We try and get to every comment we probably can. Grab, obviously another one here. As well, let's go into the first stock. I'm getting a bit carried away with all these comments.
Yes. So the first stock is VRT that was brought in by Dave. Let's start with that.
We'll do that. Happy Sunday, Kenneth. VRT. Wow, okay. This has been a while since I've last done any sort of analysis on this one. You can see where we did it last time. It must have been around mid-December, and we thought it might be a little push up and come back down and then a push up higher. And it kind of was eventually. So the theory was kind of there. But ever since then, actually, it's been really plummeting down, and it looks like it's kind of dangerously taking down the 200 moving average. Do you have any thoughts on here immediately, Kaye?
Well, I think so. I was actually looking. Let me pull up my list here. I think for VRT in particular, I am actually going to be watching this very closely now. I like this stock personally. This was brought in by Dave. I looked into VRT. I like what this company is doing. This might not be. You don't want to touch it right away because of this engulfing candle. You want to see if we can find this floor. If we don't see a floor, we could go all the way down to the 70s and 80s, right? That's where then the next support level will come in. So I want to watch this for a long term. We did see this big gap down, and the stock has been trending downwards. I want to watch where it goes, but I like the stock in general for a long term swing trade to position trade.
Yeah, we've got 78 as a level here. That's a really big volume spike.
Yeah.
Around that kind of area. Well, actually, there's a slightly bigger one. If we zoom out quite a lot, maybe here-ish, we'll get a big sense of volume here on the right side. It looks to be starting about now. Am I getting feedback from you?
Yeah, sorry, I had to open the. I couldn't respond to Money Manage, so I'm going to respond directly on the live chat.
Okay, nice. I wondered where I heard myself there.
Yeah, sorry about that.
So we've got lots of volume here. It kind of starts around 92, 93. So it'd be interesting to see if we get a bit of buying soon. If not, maybe down towards that 83 levels you mentioned. We've got here, Frank says, many of his AI stocks are a little unstable and risky at this point. VRT is one of them as well. NVIDIA was also suffering. And then we've got money managed. There you go. There's your SAS stocks, SAS stocks up there for you, so you can kind of go through them. What's next on the list then, Kaye?
Okay, next one is Microsoft. Now we get into some of those big names.
So Microsoft I actually have in a very large wedge. I brought this one up last week as well. It seems to be the bottom of that wedge, in my opinion, of course, and it kind of comes down all the way down to mid parts of 2023 as well, which is exciting. So the wedge is definitely there, and the support is definitely here, as you can see. But that last candle is not very nice at all, especially for the weekly candle.
Yeah.
Price action went all the way up to 419, and then subsequently got pushed back down to kind of 408. It didn't break the wedge, which is good. So if we do get a bounce at those spine QQQ levels, which we talked about earlier, then perhaps this could be an interesting one to play. What are your thoughts on Microsoft? Do you think they're doing okay? They've got some news on the chip recently, haven't they?
Yeah, there's news, but I think the support level that is very crucial for Microsoft is 404, because those were resistance, and we had bounces from that level multiple times before. So that level you have to watch if you are, if you are looking to trade Microsoft. But if you have it for a long-term position, I think it's a good time to slowly dollar cost average, considering it's below the 200-day SMA.
Is it? Oh, on the daily, yeah.
On the daily, it's below 200 SMA, yes.
Yeah, very much so.
Yeah.
Yes, that 404 level you mentioned, I'm going to keep that on the chart. So, there's a level of interest for myself as well. So thank you for that. Don't know who brought that one up, but hope that
I think that was Justin, I believe.
Justin.
Yeah.
Regular viewer. We appreciate it, Justin.
Next is Apple.
Yes, we can talk about Apple a little bit now here, can't we?
Well, so I have this level at 246 that I'm actually in a trade right now, and it's a bearish trade. And the reason was the bearish trade is because once they launched the phone, I was not convinced that that is going to move the markets. So it's not something, I have always defended Apple many times, but at this point of time, I don't see why we need to give premium to Apple at this point in time, considering their AI, Apple Intelligence hasn't really played a role. Now, I'm not saying the stock is going to fall down to $50. Don't get me wrong. But I think right now, I don't see why we should be buying Apple at all-time highs when the product is, there's no new products. The Apple Intelligence is not, has come along. By the way, if you watch Dan Ives on CNBC, he's a Tesla bull. He is an Apple bull. It's always he's always bullish on everything. Yeah. So if in 10 years, Apple will be much higher. We all get that. But at this point of time, I would not be buying Apple. I'm bearish on Apple at this time.
I think if Apple goes to $50, we've got bigger problems.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not saying it should go down to, but I'm saying, why am I going to pay a full all-time high price for Apple if there is nothing going on for Apple?
Yeah,
like for every other Mac 7, there is something going on, right? So Meta is into AI. You have Google into AI. You have Amazon into AI. You have Tesla, launching new cars. You have NVIDIA into chips. You have Microsoft, spending money on their chips and building AI. What is going on for Apple at this point in time?
They do have Apple Intelligence, but I'm not too
Correct.
sure.
That was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah.
So now 6 months have passed for iPhone 16 launch. Hasn't really seen much improvement. 17 is what? 6 months from now? And you get a 16E launch.
So going back to the chart then, obviously we've spoken a bit about the kind of logical side of Apple. We've had this trend line that's been going on for quite some time, and I've left it here on the chart basically to see for resistance, and actually respected it quite nicely back in January here, the end of January. Obviously subsequently pushed down quite aggressively from that, and looks to be kind of doing that again. So we do have a bit of a topping hammer candle, if you will, which means obviously the price action eventually went up to 248, almost 249 on the day, and then got pushed all the way back down to 245, which is a big kind of rejection at this 247 level. Not too sure why it's purple, so I do apologize for that. I'd like to go through different colors, as you can see. But doesn't really matter. But we might actually see a bit of a retracement back down to this level of 237, maybe even a bit higher, just because there's a few more touches here, but 239, let's say, which would be perfectly healthy. Now, whether that holds or not going forward, if you do get that, then we do have a bit of a trend line here, and then maybe that coincides in this sort of area. Now, if we break that even further, then obviously I expect the 200 moving average to be revisited. Do you agree with that, Kaye?
Yeah, pretty much. And I think I definitely see that the 245, 246 has continued as a resistance even after the launch news. So that could be the short-term resistance, at least in the weekly aspect. So we'll see how that plays out.
Exactly. Is that a shooting star? Justin Elizade says. Sorry if I said your name wrong there. I can't remember the actual terms for the candles, but to me that's a topping candle, so it could mean the same thing. I'm really bad with the actual names of candles. I just kind of describe it how I see it. But yeah, maybe. Yeah. Awesome. What's next then, Kaye?
Next is MongoDB MDB.
Last time I saw this one, it was kind of slowly kind of going upwards, and it's kind of, oh, look at that.
The funny thing about most of the charts that we are noticing, if you notice, the Friday was an engulfing candle for most of the stocks that we have so far pulled up, right? Not Apple, but the VRT had a similar one. Microsoft had a similar one. This is having a similar one. Very interesting, right? How the broader market and every single stock has an engulfing candle now.
Yeah, well, it was a pretty aggressive sell-off, and it wasn't even like a sudden one. And maybe at the beginning of the day, but then for the rest of the day, it just kept on plugging down lower and lower and lower. It was just one of those days. I mean, you get them on the opposite side as well. You get them when there's a bit of a push up in the morning, and it just grinds up for the rest of the day. So that's just what the market does, sometimes. But it looks like the SaaS companies have been hit a little bit harder than some other companies.
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, this one was down 5.7% on the day. So it's pretty aggressive. What I would say is obviously it is actually at the 200 moving average, which is interesting. So it'd be interesting to get a bit of a bounce here. Perhaps would that be something you're looking at?
Yeah, I think for me personally, we do have pretty good liquidity at these levels, right? And for MongoDB, the liquidity actually starts all the way from the 228, and you have a good volume shelf till 286. So there's a lot of buying happening at these levels. So 200-day SMA definitely provides a very good support. Now, if that breaks, then I would actually see the point of control would be around the 234, 235 level. That's where I would be looking to add to my position. If the 200 breaks, we are hoping it doesn't break, because that's
here.
Yeah, that is going to be a pretty big. It's going to be very bearish if it breaks the 200-day SMA.
100%. Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's kind of, this is the weekly chart now as well. It looks like it's kind of pushing down from the 50 and the 20 moving average as well. So it'll be interesting to see if that momentum continues to the downside for MongoDB. They report earnings pretty soon. I've got the date here, the 5th of March. So it's only a couple of weeks away.
Yeah.
Interesting to see what happens there as well, because the last earnings report, albeit it has a green shield down the bottom there, it looks like the reaction was actually pretty poor. Obviously sold off for the month after that, and obviously kind of slowly plugged its way back up. So it'll be interesting to see how it reacts in the next earnings report. What's next?
Next is Zscaler, ZS.
Lots of SaaS companies, right?
Yeah, similar pattern. You see that big engulfing candle on Friday.
Yeah, it's not quite engulfing now. It's more of a teardrop.
That is true. That is true.
Engulfing that makes it bigger than the other one, the one before. But yeah, I mean, again, another one that's kind of sold off. There's not really much on the chart that I can kind of see here. You've got this potential retest here.
Coming closer to the 50-day SMA, right? That should be a good support level.
Yeah, it should be. I like this trend line that's kind of coming down, because we had that push off of it here to the positive side in the beginning of December. Obviously, it did subsequently kind of fall down and then come back up. So maybe if it does break the 50, that area here of around 190, where it kind of comes in line with the previous trend line as well and the 200 moving average, that'd be an interesting point of confluence for me.
Confluence.
190.
And the earnings are also coming out on 3/5, so that's also a good catalyst for the stock.
I'm going to write that one down. Whoever brought that one up?
I think it was brought by Harish.
Yeah, we appreciate that. I always like to get new stocks on the radar. What's up next, okay?
Next one is also from Harish. It's ALAB, ALAB.
Astera Labs. Not too sure what they do.
Go ahead. I'll take a look at that.
But we do have the fact it came on the market last year in March, late March. So it's almost a year old, this stock. Lots of resistance around this level initially at 75. And it actually has created the 200 moving average on the daily chart at that level as well. So maybe if we do revisit that level of 75, let's call it 75 for accuracy purposes. that could be an interesting point to add. But I'd have to dig into the company and what they actually do.
Yeah, so they design, manufacture, and sell semiconductor-based connectivity solutions for cloud and AI infrastructure. It offers intelligent connectivity platform comprised of semiconductor-based mixed signal connectivity products that integrates matrix of microcontrollers, sensors, and Cosmos. So a lot of on the AI side and semiconductor space. Very interesting. I've added that to my watch list as well.
Yeah. Are you in agreement with the 75 level, or do you see something
Yeah,
else?
yeah. I mean, at this point in time, considering how the broader market is performing, and by the way, let's wait and watch how Nvidia performs, because again, we could see. Because generally, what ends up happening is we are going into the earnings with a lot of anticipation on Nvidia that hey, it's going to break through. But if we see weakness, or we see buy the rumor, sell the news event, we could see impact on all these other semiconductor stocks as well. And don't forget, we have the SMCI filing coming up. So anything happens on that front will also impact other semiconductor space, because they are a pretty big company when it comes to NVIDIA as a customer. They are one of the biggest NVIDIA customers.
Awesome. Yeah, definitely one to watch on Wednesday.
Next, actually, we come to NVIDIA. That's reporting earnings.
So we'll start on a weekly chart here for NVIDIA. We did have a bit of a push down from the previous trend line, which we spoke about last weekend. Now, we're still very much in contention to make new highs, of course, because if that does break, especially if it has good earnings, of course, then perhaps we do get that push to the upside and maybe all-time highs. But if we go back down lower, we might see another little retest of the 50 moving average. That would be the 2 points of interest for me. Whether I would trade it now, probably not, obviously, with earnings coming up. Would you trade it before earnings, or are you sitting and waiting?
I actually already did a trade. It was a pretty minor profit that I took. I'm glad I ended the trade early. I may trade going into the earnings, so it could be a day that I might just get in and get out. But as of right now, I want to assess how Monday plays out before I decide whether I want to trade or not. Because it could be like you could just buy a call option and you would have, you would lose like 60-70% of your call options if we see an IV crush. An IV crush will happen. So I have to think what kind of a trade I can do based on the price action on Monday.
I'm muting myself. On the daily now, we actually have come down to revisit the 50 moving average once again. It does act as a little bit of support and resistance as well, so it's interesting to see that going into earnings. Yeah. Is that all you got to say on NVIDIA?
Yeah, next up is CrowdStrike.
I mean, yeah, pretty vicious sell-off again in the last 3 days. It's had a bit of a bounce, didn't we, on Thursday on a lot of stocks, but then subsequently kind of dropping off on a lot of stocks as well on Friday. So perhaps that kind of bullishness is maybe not holding up.
They're reporting earnings on 3/4, so that would be definitely a catalyst to watch. It's
and I've got this level drawn. Seems to be a lot of lines at this level.
Yeah.
379 to 384, maybe a little bit of a zone there. If you're adding for your long-term positions, but going into earnings, it's pretty tricky to start a position there.
Correct.
Adding was okay, I suppose, but yeah, if you zoom out, maybe if we get to the weekly, it might look a bit better. Yeah, just basically a retest of previous highs back in June of last year. And that's okay. I'm okay with that. Is that something you look for? Well, obviously not, but is that something you consider when you do your trading?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, so I think maybe CrowdStrike, we should do another round next week to see how it plays out this week, considering they report earnings the following week.
Let's do that.
Next up is Tesla.
I think what we'll say is with whoever brought that one up. I'll try and find
that one was, let me see.
Here we are, here to learn. Another regular viewer, we appreciate you very much. If you can repost that next week as well, just to remind us. I mean, we've written it down, but we're not that good. If we've written it down, But if you come back and post it again next week as well, we'll see what happens the following week. Anyway, what's next?
Oh, next up is the great Tesla. The I don't know. So if you see the 360 range, and the reason is I like the 360 range because it has been rejected from 360 for what, 4-5 trading days, and now we saw a big rejection on Friday considering the broader market. What I'm watching is the three. I'm watching 323 level now because that's where the majority of the volume shelf sits, and there's a lot of liquidity. But if we see weakness on that, then of course we are heading to the psychological level of 300. And if you follow a lot of analysts, or if you follow a lot of YouTubers on Tesla, you would notice that a lot of them have also said that we could see the lows of 270s or 280s. So it's not like out of the picture. If we see broader market impact, and Elon loves to create controversies. So
it does. I mean, you've got also the 200 moving average there coming in around that kind of 270, 280 mark already now.
yeah.
So if we do get a bit of a drop, maybe that could act as a bit of support. But just another little note on the chart. So if the 200 doesn't hold up, which is sometimes the case, we do have a couple of gap fills here, but one there and then one here as well at 255 and 218. So if it does get really bad, then perhaps those gap fills can be a point of interest for your trading or long-term positions as well. Yeah.
One other thing I also want to mention, since we have a lot of folks watching us, what I also want to say that you need to be careful with a lot of these pumpers of Tesla stocks, right? Who pump everything. It's like, we're going to have robots coming out and it's going to take over the world and everything is going to happen. Guys, just open your eyes. It took EV, and EV is still not the mainstream cars till today. It's been 10 years plus. So somebody launching a robo taxi in Austin in June, it's not going to just take over the entire world in no time. If it's going to take time for that business to play out, so why would you want to pay 10-year later price today, right? In simple terms. So I when I watch these Tesla YouTubers, sometimes it just goes out of my head is like, are you trading, are you investing, or are you just hoping for the best to happen and just throw your money? Because that's why you would buy Tesla at $400 and then now regret that we are down $100.
I think that's a very important point. Just be realistic on these goals. Obviously, it's good to have companies that have goals and things like that, but they're not going to build millions of robots in the space of 6 months, are they? So yeah, I think that's a really interesting point. We've got a comment here from PK. We've got, which EMAs are you using? Thank you. For me personally, I've got the blue one here, which is the 20 moving average, the white one here, which is the 50 moving average, and the red one here is the 200 moving average. I use that for my swing trading, kind of long-term positions, but for my day trading, I use a 9 and a 21 moving average. Kaye, do you do a similar sort of thing?
No, I don't use EMA. I use SMA, and I use the 50, 100, and 200 because most of my trading happens for swing trades and position trades. So I tend to use those as my levels.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. This is actually smooth moving averages, SMAs. I always get mixed up. I don't really think it matters too much because they're all kind of around a similar sort of area. But yeah, it's worth noting for sure.
I think personally is whatever averages you use, as long as you stick with those averages, you will start to find the pattern and you'll understand what levels to get in. Because I moved from SMA to EMA, it did not help me. So I moved back to SMA because that's what works for me. So see what works for you.
Yeah, awesome.
Next is GitLab.
Okay, again, another bit of a red candle on Friday. It seems to have actually had this level drawn at 67, which is kind of blasted through down to the 50 moving average, as we just spoke about. You're the man for software. Are you still interested in GitLab at these levels, or are you?
Yep, I am still interested. They are going to report earnings next week, 3/3. So all the softwares we talked about and the cybersecurity, everybody's reporting earnings the next week. The good news about GitLab is that they are beating top line and bottom line since they have gone public. We have 24 up revisions for the coming quarter, so most likely is going to be a beat. What I'm really watching, if we see buy the rumor, sell the news event kind of an event. And if you draw the long trend line, yes, that's the one. I am looking at adding. I like GitLab around the 5960 level. So if we see a drop down, I tend to add to my GitLab position. And I generally run a covered call when it goes to the top of the range. That's what I'm looking for. But most likely it's going to be a beat on both top lines. So I want to see if it is a pullback, I will add at 5960 level.
I think that's interesting. So you've got the 5950. I've just kind of put it in between the two levels you just mentioned. But you've got a lot of resistance in the past that's hit that level. So it's an interesting level of support, sure. But that does break the trend line somewhat. Are you okay with that? If it breaks the trend line and hits there and moves back up?
Yeah, but I will also not play it in before the earnings. If I want to add it, I will wait and watch after the earnings on GitLab.
Yeah, not rushing into it.
Yeah, not rushing on the SaaS software space. Unlike playing NVIDIA to the earnings or any Mac 7 is very different from playing other stocks. So one strategy does not apply on all stocks.
Yes, definitely. Should we move on?
Yeah, next up is NU. I think this is in your space, I believe.
It's a fintech stock. I think it's in South America. What a drop that is.
What a drop. Amazing.
I'm guessing they didn't have very good earnings.
Let me see. So they missed the bottom line by $183 million. Nice.
I mean, the drop they've had from the previous day, that is 18%. It's pretty dramatic. So let's have a look for some support then. I've already got 971 drawn on the chart from previous analysis by looks of it. So if we go to the weekly first, get a bit more of an overall look. Yeah, it still seems like the point of interest for me, 970. We could probably say there might be one here at this level here at 1050. But then again, if you have these kind of results coming out and they're not great, what you do tend to see is until the next quarter, or at least the next halfway through to next quarter, you see a little bit of a dribble down from the stock. We saw it earlier with MDB, I believe, when they reacted to their earnings. It just kind of dribbled down for another month or so. So we might get that. We might even just get some straight flat price action, which will probably be good, to be honest, for new holdings. But yeah, anywhere between this 970 and 1050 looks to be like an area of support for me. But would I be adding here? Would I be buying here? Probably not. There's better opportunities in the market for me.
I think 807 is what would start to interest you.
This one here, yeah. No, interesting.
Next up, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that's it, yeah.
Next up is MELI. I think this is also in your wheelhouse.
I don't know if it is. If it's South American, yeah, but I think it's the South American Amazon, I believe.
Yeah, and then this is what, $2,000 stocks. It's like,
yeah, I wonder if they do a split.
Running an option is like crazy on this one.
You can see a very clear. Oh, this is beautiful. I really wish I caught this. Whoever brought this one up, if you could have done that 3 weeks ago, that would have been much better. I don't know who it was or when it was, but let's have a look. Let's try and find who it was.
I'll find it.
Okay, you find it. I don't think it's on the actual comments here, but anyway, you can see a perfect kind of trend line breakout happening here. You've got obviously the point where it started to kind of reverse, and then resistance, again resistance, broke through, come back down, retested perfectly, pretty much, and then obviously subsequently moved higher and gone through the previous highs as well. So that's a really, really good example of a breakout trade from a trend line. Anything to add here, Kaye?
No. Let's move on. We actually have a lot, so let's do a little bit of a quick run. A lot of requests. So next up is Celsius.
Almost coming to the end of the hour now.
Yeah. So we have about some time. So I want to go through as many requests as possible. So next up is Celsius. Oh man, this was earnings were 33% up on earning report, right?
Yeah, really good.
I think, I don't know if you were part of Celsius. If you were not trading Celsius, I think at this point in time, just wait and watch. Let the post earning, because this is a gap up, right? So you want to see if the gap gets filled on the daily or not. The $22, $25 level was a very, very good support level. A lot of consolidation had happened on that. If you follow me on Twitter, I posted my trade results on that, definitely go check it out. But I think at this point in time, I would not get into Celsius. I would wait to see how the stock stabilizes, because there was a lot of momentum and we could see a lot of profit taking at that level come next week. So that's my take. What's yours?
Yeah, I mean, especially as the people will probably, people that were in here probably added here, probably added here, probably added here. So they might be getting excited at this push, and they might be just taking a little bit off the table because they've added so much. It happens to a lot of investors, a lot of traders, I guess, as well. But for me personally, I like this volume profile here on the right. If we can hold that, like you said, if the stock stabilizes over the next couple of weeks, if we can hold this level of around 31, 32, 33-ish, then I would like this zone, which I've actually drawn. I did a tweet on this a couple of days ago, post earnings. I do like this level between 45 and 50 as a bit of resistance. And the reason I've taken this on the weekly chart, as you can see, obviously the price action and resistance possible here, and it kind of coincides with the 50 moving average as well. I know the 200 is in the way, but the 200 hasn't acted as much of a support or resistance for this stock, so I kind of disregard that when I see that. Of course, it is a point of interest, a point of concern, should I say? But yeah, it's not really one I'm worried about too much. But yeah, I mean, I'm not going to add here. Well, I say add, I now have a position. I'm not going to start a position here or anything like that, but I'll certainly see how it plays out for sure.
Next up is Amazon.
Yeah, so this one I really like. Whoops, that's the wrong thing. Is that a question? There we go. This one I really like. So this is the weekly chart straight away. So we've got 216 as a level, which I think we spoke about last week or the week before, maybe. I mean, we pretty much cover Amazon weekly anyway. But you can see here the 216 level is very interesting. And obviously, you've got a 20 moving average coming in here for the weekly chart as well. So there's a couple of points of confidence there. Yes, we could have more volume here, but obviously, you can't have everything. Any thoughts on this one? Do you think it might break down even lower, or do you see a bit of a bounce here, Kaye?
Well, I think that would really depend on how the NVIDIA plays out, because considering NVIDIA is the last of the Max 7 to report earnings. I mean, I like Amazon for long term. It is part of my portfolio, but I would not be buying. I think Google presents a better opportunity, which we can cover right after this. And I do have a video coming out on Google stock next week. So definitely track that. But I like Google at these levels more than Amazon. But again, these are Max 7, so you can't go wrong in either.
Exactly. Let's have a look at Google then while we're talking about that. So similar sort of thing. We're coming back down to the 20 moving average on the weekly chart. Do you want me to keep on the weekly chart, or do you want me to dive into the daily chart?
I'm looking at daily, honestly, for Google, and we had this gap which they started to fill that gap. So now there is still some movement left for the gap to fill, because there isn't much liquidity. That was I think they reported earnings in December, sorry, dividends in December, and then we had that big gap up, and the stock has been running up. I would definitely want to see how it plays out in the coming days. There is some support on the weekly. But then when you go back to the daily, I see, again, it depends on the whole broader market and NVIDIA reporting earnings. That will play a role on this one as well.
I think your point there for the gap fill is sitting around about 178. You've got the trend line here as well, and the 200 moving average. So that's plenty of confidence there for Google investors or traders. I actually like that level as well at 178.
Okay, next up, let's pick up some stocks that we don't talk often: Nike and Starbucks.
Nike, I always see this one being talked about on X at the moment. I haven't actually looked at it at all, but it looks like maybe overall we've got a bit of a downtrend kind of going, haven't we?
We have a downtrend, but they were able to break that downtrend, and it's now retesting that trend line. So if you draw the downtrend all the way from September of 2024 or even before, you would see that on the daily, it's starting to break out.
That's the longer term one. You're talking about daily, aren't you?
Yeah.
Since September, you say?
September. At least that's when I've been drawing this trend line. Now the stock, by the way, is we do have the 20 SMA almost at the crossroad with 50 SMA. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah. So now it's in the retest phase. honestly, after the big drop in Nike, we had created multiple gaps.
Yes,
And, and so there was some more fundamental issues with the stock in general, right? And that is slowly starting to change. The stock has been hit pretty bad. It's been trading under 200 ASMA since what? March of 2024. So almost coming up an year. The stock has been in downtrend.
So people might be thinking this is a bit more of a value
It's a
opportunity.
value play. Also, they changed the CEO, new strategies. Again, it's not going to change around in one quarter because considering these are consumer products. And if the consumer sentiment, sours because of the economy, we could see a longer term recovery. But I like the stock at these levels. I actually have a couple leap calls on Nike for expiring 2026, June and December.
Good to see. That's interesting feedback there. I mean, for me, I like to look a bit more of a bigger time frame, and you've got the weekly, and you can see obviously the downtrend. Sorry about the mess up there. And the downtrend, I mean, yeah, it's a tricky one.
It's a tricky one. So it's not for your day trading, by the way.
No,
It's more of a long-term position trade that you can aim, because even from this level, if you just look at the resistance to 200-day SMA, that's almost 5% if you want to play a small term, a short term. But the first gap fill is 13%, second gap fill is 20%.
Yeah, so that second gap fills that blue line here on top. We'll change the color just for conversation purposes. So the pink line is the second gap that you're talking about there.
Yeah.
I don't mind that because you've got the big volume obviously created here with the lower price action, and then you've got another big volume spike there at the kind of 95 level-ish. So that would then fill that gap. So that's a pretty interesting trade to take. I might actually look at that.
But what you have to do is you have to track Nike's reports every quarter and see what they're projecting for the next quarter. It is very important considering it's a consumer discretionary product, and the economy and Nike are very closely interrelated. So, right. So if people don't have the money to spend, they don't want to spend, they're not going to go buy Nike shoes, right? You have to keep that in mind.
That's an interesting point, yeah.
Okay, next up is Starbucks in the same brand, and look at that. They changed the CEO, right? Look at so this is exact replica of Nike. They both were in a downtrend. The previous CEO of Starbucks, I think that was he did not do a good job. The stock really crashed. They brought in the Chipotle CEO in place. It took him a while, right? They were making a lot of memes on him that they are paying him to fly into office every single time. But look at the turnaround on Starbucks. They brought in some big changes in the store itself, and look at the stock price, right? So this is exactly what we are hoping, that Nike will have a turnaround similar to Starbucks.
Yeah. So maybe this will be Nike in a year's time, perhaps. That's kind of what people are hoping, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of them are not stocks that I like to trade or obviously look at, because obviously the dividend stocks are a little bit more boring for me. But I understand people's interest in them for sure. But yeah, no, you're welcome, PK, for sharing thoughts on Nike and Starbucks. Obviously, come back next week for some more picks as well. Any more, Kaye, or should we wrap up?
Have a lot. So we still have a couple minutes, right? So let's go SOFI and then Palantir.
SOFI and Palantir, I think there's some good names out there. People like these names. SOFI, for me, actually, I was looking at this the other day. This is the weekly chart. It seems to be coming back down to the bottom of this wedge that we drew, a couple of months ago. And also the 20-move average has crept up nicely here as well on the weekly chart. So it does prove a little bit of support there for SOFI. If obviously we break lower, then of course this retest of the larger trend line would be something I've been looking at around that kind of $13 level. The company itself obviously going really well. Obviously, it's just a bank pretty much at the end of the day, but it's definitely a company that people are very excited about, especially with the CEO like Anthony Noto in charge. He's an interesting chap. Any thoughts on SOFI? I know you like SOFI.
No, I think pretty much you covered it. I don't want to berate the same point again and again. I know that there are people who like to be in a cult. There's a SOFI cult also.
Yeah.
But as a trader and investor, what I would highly recommend, don't be in a cult. Just look at objectively. Otherwise, you will basically be holding the bag for a longer term. Exactly. Next up is Palantir.
I think just on the last thing for SOFI, in terms of, how I would trade this is what I would do is I'd wait for a break of this upper resistance here, then obviously it would maybe come up to that kind of 1787 level, come back down and retest it, and then I would play simply from 1650-ish to all the way to 24. Sounds a bit dramatic, but it's a long-term swing trade. That's how it kind of works. Anyway, let's move on to patterns here.
One other idea I can give you on SOFI that I generally tend to play is I find those levels. So right now for me particularly a level is $15, and I sell a cash secured put maybe a month or 2 months away. So you get a decent premium on SOFI that lowers your cost basis, and because the stock is a little bit cheaper stock, you can open multiple contracts. So again, that depends on how much capital you want to invest in. From a trading standpoint. So that's one way I play SOFI. I mostly open cash secured puts on SOFIs.
Awesome. Just quickly here for Here to Learn. Obviously, you did put up crowd earlier. You may have missed it, but we did cover that probably about 10-15 minutes ago. So you can go back and have a look at that in the post-recording. I just thought I'd mention that before we look at Palantir for the last stock today. Should we call it the last one?
I mean, we have a lot more, but I don't know how much you want to spend time. But let's cover Palantir and we can come back and see.
Okay, we'll see. Yeah. This is the weekly chart. Obviously, this week has been a bit of a red week, but I mean, you can see in comparison to how it has been, it's really nothing, is it? I mean, it's just a natural kind of fall from grace. Well, not fall from grace, that's a bit dramatic, but a natural kind of recovery, I guess. Retracement, whatever you want to call it. What's the word, Kaye? What am I trying to think of here?
Yeah, I think you should not be complaining on Palantir. That's the last stock you should be complaining about Palantir, considering it has such a massive run. 30. By the way, it was up 345% in 1 year, but year to date it's up 34%.
Yeah,
so even if you just got in at the beginning of the year, you have actually made more than you would make on a typical year on S&P 500.
Exactly. The level I'm looking at is 85. I think we've spoken about this for a few times now.
We talked about this 2 weeks back. Somebody brought up, and I said, so my philosophy is I don't buy stocks at all-time highs, no matter what it is, right? Because especially when you have these many gaps that have been created, if you bought it at the top, and if the stock pulls to $85, which is the level Sean is drawing, that's a 25% drawdown.
Would you short it from there to there?
I don't like shorting it because generally you burn your hands when you short something. But when it creates a gap, I don't want to burn my hands by, holding the bag.
Yeah.
Because see, my main strategy is to sell covered calls, right? I want to generate the income. And buying at the top doesn't help me generate the income because if I buy a stock at 120 and the stock drops to 85, I can't sell a cover call. It doesn't align with my trading strategy.
No, fair point. Yeah, fair point. Right, so let's do 2 more.
2 more? Okay, so 2 more. We'll do Plug, PLUG.
This one's not been doing too well.
It's a penny stock, right?
Actually, look at that. So I actually put a info to go short from here. Obviously, I didn't do it clearly, but 18% have kind of played out perfectly. So there you go. It's a good example of a good short that he could have made. But this one looks like it could be going even lower, to be honest with you. Nice little retracement off of 20 moving average. And perhaps if we break this low, then we'd be going a little bit lower. This is a hydrogen stock. Yeah, you just mentioned that, but not one I trade at all, really, to be honest with you. What about you?
No, not my type of stock. Next up is Grab.
Grab, yeah, there's been lots of chat around Grab recently, especially last weekend. One of the highest tickers, I think, that was searched or anything like that.
Grab is also becoming one of the culted stock, right? A lot of cults around Grab now.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just an Uber of Southeast Asia, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what I have so far understood.
So
but I believe the key that they are saying on Grab is not just that it's like Uber, it's also going to have a financial arm to it. I have not done enough research to have a say in whether I like the stock or not. But you would trade the momentum.
Maybe we should look at it.
Yeah.
But the chart, I mean, it suggests that $4 level is really, really nice on the weekly chart. If it does get a bit of a drawdown from here. Earnings was this previous week. Obviously, we saw a bit of a pump maybe before or after. I don't really know exactly when that was. But we've come back down to kind of retest the trend line here and what looks like the 200 moving average on the weekly. So we could get a bit of a short-term bounce here back up to kind of highs of 570, which is no mean feat. We've got that there is around about 17%. So that's pretty good return if you can play that perfectly. But for the longer term, I think definitely $4 is the level I'm looking at, because you've just got this 50 moving average creeping up nicely as well below it, and all of that previous resistance here acting as support, which would be lovely. So if we get grab at 4, I really like this. But like you say, if you're looking at a long-term trade or a long-term, even long-term position, really, you do need to do your due diligence on what the actual company does and the financials to see if they can sustain for the quarters ahead. For sure, you can't just go in blind because of technicals for the long term.
Yep. And I'm surprised maybe the person who requested grab, I don't know why it fell down that much, because they had a both top line and bottom line beat. I'm assuming maybe the future guidance was weak. That could be the reason.
I think so. At the beginning of the week, over the weekend, as I mentioned, obviously we had a lot of tickers. There was lots of mentions around grab. It's one of the highest searched in the whole weekend just because it kind of took off. I think that was the hype there, and it just sold off because of
Yeah, I think what this kind of mentality is what ends up happening is that people start comparing companies. So I understand that Grab is the key player in the Southeast Asia, but then you also have Didi, right, in the China space, and then you have Uber, you have Lyft. It provides a good opportunity, but sometimes people take this into this binary event kind of a thing. It's going to overtake everything and become the biggest thing on planet Earth. Doesn't work like that.
People just get really excited, don't they?
Yeah, exactly. That's why I say, you got to be careful with the cult. There's a lot of cults. On Tesla, there's one. SoFi, there's another one. You have a Hood cult.
Yeah, and we got one in Neo as well. I know you don't want to say it, but
yeah, exactly. Nothing wrong with being cult, but what I also think, use your objective. Take example, like you can't, like Uber, for example. There was a comment that what's the CEO name? I can't remember his name. He was on some seminar and he did mention that he went to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk said that we will go alone on the robotaxi event, and that also happened. I think recently that he made that comment. So again, Tesla will have their own robotaxi fleet. They will not tie up with Uber at this point in time. We'll see how that plays out. Maybe that might just work for Tesla, maybe not. It's too early to tell. June is too far. A lot could happen from here to June.
Exactly right. I think we'll call it there. Obviously, sorry if we didn't get to any of the tickers. We had quite a few left. We had Meta,
We had a lot left. Yes,
and perhaps there should be a petition for us to do a midweek version as well. Go ahead and DM us both if you think that's a good idea. But don't DM us too much. I want to sleep tonight. But no, we do appreciate everything that you provide as well. And obviously, a big thank you to Wolf as well for that the platform. We really appreciate it. And we don't say it enough, but do subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let me just stick it up on the screen so you can see that just before we close this out. So it's the Trading Triangle on YouTube. Any last thoughts here, Kaye?
No, I think just be careful. If you are trading SMCI, make sure you watch the news on February 25th very closely, because that is going to impact the semiconductor space in general. And then, of course, the big one will be the NVIDIA.
Exactly. Yeah, just be careful out there, guys. Obviously, trade safe. It's very volatile out there. So obviously, manage those positions as best as you can, as Kaye said as well. Yeah, that's it. We'll call it there. We won't see you next week, actually, just to stick that in there. We're going to be having a week off. Kaye's in Europe. Which gives me a little bit of time to kind of sit back and relax and review my trades personally. Maybe I might go live myself on a different adventure. But yeah, no, fantastic. We'll see you in a couple of weeks' time. I think that might be March the 8th or something like that.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. We'll see you then. Take care, everyone.
Take care. Bye.